So chapter 19 is the heart. So let's do a quick heart anatomy overview. So the heart is a muscle, and it's basically two muscles that come together and work side by side. They sort of intertwine to make two sides of the heart. So we have a right side of the heart and a left side of the heart. And the right side of the heart, so the right side deals with deoxygenated blood. And the left side deals with oxygenated blood. So we have a right side and a left side. And then we also have, within each side is separated or divided into each one with two separate chambers. So this top one, so this is the right atrium. And this is the left atrium. And below that is the right ventricle and the left ventricle. In the wall separating those two chambers is a valve. Okay, so these are called AV valves. So AV meaning atrioventricular valves. All right, the right atrioventricular valve is also called the tricuspid valve, and the left atrioventricular valve is also called the bicuspid and also the mitral valve. So if we start with the right atrium is going to receive blood. So it's going to receive blood from two sources, the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. And this blood is deoxygenated. It's blood that's already been through the body and everything's been taken out of it, and it's deoxygenated, and it gets dumped into the right atrium. Okay, there's also another structure here in the right atrium, and this is the spot where the coronary sinus dumps its deoxygenated blood. So this is the blood that's been actually used by the heart itself in its function, and that blood goes back into the right atrium as well. So all the deoxygenated blood ends up in the right atrium. It flows through the right atrium into the right ventricle through the AV valves. So it does this mainly by gravity. So once the blood starts filling the right atrium, the pressure from that and and gravity cause those AV valve doors to open, and then the about 80% of the blood that goes in the atrium ends up into the ventricles passively. Okay, so once it's in the right ventricle and the heart's going to contract, the rest of the blood is forced into the ventricle as the right atrium contract, and then and then the right ventricle contracts, and that causes the doors of the valves to shut. And that blood then is sent into the pulmonary trunk. Pulmonary trunk. And the pulmonary trunk I can make this look decent. So the pulmonary trunk branches into right and left pulmonary arteries. So the right pulmonary artery and the left pulmonary artery, and it sends that blood to the lungs. This is the pulmonary trunk. Trunk there. So the pulmonary trunk sends the blood both directions into each of the lungs. Still deoxygenated blood. So this goes into the lungs, picks up oxygen, and comes out through the pulmonary veins. Pulmonary veins. And this is after it's picked up oxygen. So this is oxygenated blood and goes into the left atrium. Same thing happens on the left side as the right side. So the left atrium starts to accumulate blood, opens the doors of the bicuspid valve or the AV valves, and in it goes to the left ventricle. Then we have contraction. The left atrium contracts first. The rest of the blood goes into the left ventricle. Then the ventricle contracts. When it does, it sends the blood into the aorta. And it goes around the heart and goes into a bunch of different arteries and is dispersed throughout the body. Once it goes through the body and gives away its nutrients, its oxygen and nutrients, then the blood goes back toward the heart through eventually the inferior and superior vena cava. This area here where the lungs are, this is called the pulmonary circuit. All right, this area here to the body is called the systemic circuit. And the systemic circuit deals with oxygenated blood, sending it out to the body tissues. The pulmonary circuit deals with deoxygenated blood, getting it oxygenated in the lungs to go back out to be dispersed into the body. So these are, different veins and arteries that are moving the blood around, and you don't want to think of arteries and veins as far as what they are carrying. So not all arteries carry oxygenated blood, and not all veins carry deoxygenated blood. But what we do know is all arteries carry blood away from the heart. And all veins carry blood toward the heart. So this artery right here, the pulmonary artery, the pulmonary trunk, and right and left pulmonary arteries, these arteries carry deoxygenated blood, but they are arteries. These veins right here, the pulmonary veins, carry oxygenated blood toward the heart. So in the pulmonary circuit, this is what you would think is backwards as far as what the arteries are carrying and what the veins are carrying. Okay, the systemic circuit is what you would think of. The arteries carry oxygenated and the veins carry deoxygenated blood. So you should be able to follow a drop of blood through this entire system. And it only goes in one direction. If we have backwards flow of blood, that's a bad thing. Okay. One thing I didn't mention, and I'm sorry I forgot, but there are valves here at the pulmonary artery and the heart. And there are valves at the aorta and the heart. Those are called semilunar valves. So this one is called the aortic semilunar valve. And this one is called the pulmonary semilunar valve. And the semilunar just describes basically how the doors look on there, okay? So make sure you can follow a drop of blood through the entire way, know all the anatomy here, and this is a good overview for the more specific anatomy that we'll talk about with the heart.